Hi, PerspectiveWeather.com meteorologist Paul Dorian here on Tuesday, October 6th. We now have a Category 2 hurricane over the western part of the Caribbean Sea. Delta intensified rapidly over the last 24 hours, now has maximum sustained winds of 110 miles per hour. Very likely will become a major hurricane, Category 3 or above, over the next 24 to 48 hours or so. It is still over some very warm waters of the Caribbean Sea and should have an encounter with the Yucatan Peninsula region of Mexico, probably as a major hurricane over the next couple of days, skirting at least moving over the northeastern part of the peninsula. Then it spills out over the very warm waters of the Gulf of Mexico, and it looks like it is likely to have a direct impact on the northern Gulf region by late Friday night time frame, perhaps right in the state of Louisiana. After that, its remnants will move to the north and east, perhaps producing some rainfall all the way up into the Mid-Atlantic region by the end of the upcoming weekend. Here's the latest infrared satellite imagery loop of Hurricane Delta. Again, a Category 2 storm, a strong Category 2 storm with sustained winds at 110 miles per hour. Quite a symmetrical look in its appearance right now. This outline right here is the Yucatan Peninsula region of Mexico. It is very likely to move over the northeastern part of the Yucatan Peninsula region as a major hurricane. I believe it will not only reach Category 3 over the next 24 to 48 hours, perhaps Category 4, and even an outside chance of Category 5 as it is undergoing rapid intensification. It is in an environment of low wind shear and, again, very warm waters over the Caribbean Sea. This is Cuba. Will certainly have some impact as well, but again, it is headed basically in a west-northwest direction right towards the northeastern part of the Yucatan Peninsula region of Mexico. Here's the latest storm track as depicted by the National Hurricane Center based in Miami. And again, over some very warm waters here, the Caribbean Sea. Again, we've talked about homegrown type systems, those that form over the Caribbean, over the Gulf of Mexico, as opposed to tropical waves that come off the west coast of Africa. Homegrown systems are much more important during the latter stages of the tropical season in the Atlantic Basin. And indeed, we are into October now, and it will certainly we're in the latter stages of the season. In fact, once this thing gets out of the way, it may quiet down again, and perhaps quiet down for good in the Atlantic Basin. But again, a strong Category 3 storm, very likely to become a major hurricane by the time it reaches the northeastern part of the Yucatan Peninsula region. At least a Category 4, I believe, is on the table by this time. That's over the next a day or two, and it could maintain its major hurricane status into the Gulf of Mexico. Hopefully will weaken a little bit by the time it likely reaches the northern Gulf late Friday night, Saturday time frame, probably into the state of Louisiana. A little bit cooler waters right near the southern coast of Louisiana. Hopefully will weaken it to a less than major hurricane by the time it makes landfall the end of Friday or going into the early part of Saturday. After that, its remnants will turn to the north and east, and again, it could produce some rainfall as far to the north and east as the Mid-Atlantic region, late Sunday night time frame. And here's a forecast map of total precipitation by NOAA for the next 7 days. This goes from this morning, Tuesday morning, all the way to next Tuesday morning. And the main reason I want to point this out is it really gives you an idea of the track of Hurricane Delta, not only over the next few days, but even beyond landfall in the northern Gulf region as it'll turn to the north and east. Again, the main projected storm track right now is something like this, and that could again result in mid-Atlantic rainfall at the end of the upcoming weekend here, and very heavy rainfall across the south-central U.S. Possible landfall Louisiana, maybe late Friday night time frame, but first it has to have an encounter with the Yucatan Peninsula region of Mexico. Unfortunately, it looks like it'll become a major hurricane by the time it reaches that part of Mexico, and it will not lose much of its strength, it looks like, passing over the northeastern part of the Yucatan Peninsula region. Hopefully it can get knocked down a little bit, but right now environmental conditions look favorable not only before its encounter with the Yucatan Peninsula region, but even after into at least the southern and central part of the Gulf of Mexico. Again, still very warm sea surface temperatures, not only throughout the Caribbean Sea, but throughout the Gulf of Mexico as we progress through the early part of the month of October. Well, let's now take a look at last night's operational run of the GFS. In general, not too much a disagreement between the models in terms of the potential track of Hurricane Delta. The European may be a little bit slower than the GFS, but they generally tend to pass it over the Yucatan Peninsula region of Mexico and perhaps having a direct impact on the northern Gulf of Mexico at the end of the work week or the early part of the weekend, maybe the state of Louisiana. Let's now progress through, by the way, up across the Mid-Atlantic region, northeast U.S., a tremendous weather stretch from here right to the end of the work week with comfortable temperatures. Let's move forward here. High pressure in control up across the Mid-Atlantic and the northeast, and here comes Delta. It'll probably move over the northeastern part of the Yucatan Peninsula of Mexico. Not lose all that much of its strength, unfortunately. It will be very likely become a major hurricane before it hits Mexico, and then maintain perhaps a major hurricane status into the southern and perhaps even into the central part of the Gulf of Mexico. Here we go now into Thursday, and then it starts to turn to the north, and looks like direct impact on Louisiana is certainly on the table for late Friday night time frame. Hopefully it weakens somewhat in those last hours before it makes landfall with a little bit cooler water in the northern Gulf of Mexico, and then it likely turns to the north and east after landfall. Perhaps again in southern Louisiana it turns to the north and east and could spread some heavy rainfall into the Tennessee Valley by the first half of the upcoming weekend, and then likely result in some rain across the Mid-Atlantic region, perhaps even some heavy rain late Sunday night into the early part of Monday. That's still a long ways away, but again, we will be monitoring the movement of Hurricane Delta over the next several days. Now a strong Category 2 storm, very likely to become a major hurricane, perhaps as strong as a Category 4 or so, even an outside chance of reaching Category 5 status over the next couple of days. That's it for now for PerspectiveWeather.com. I'm meteorologist Paul Dorian.